Meeting of the Henry County Council, July 27th, 2023, to order, please. We will begin with the pledge by Kyle and a prayer by Susan Hoon. Thank you. Need to tape this down, as Bobby suggests. Council, you've been given the minutes from our regular June 22nd meeting. I know Shannon and I have commented to Debbie, who's made a couple of minor corrections. Anyone else have any corrections, modifications, etc.? If not, I'd accept a motion to pass.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Susan, seconded by Harold. Any other additional comments? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Do we know if Betsy's on Zoom? I don't think so, but she wasn't. I probably didn't ask for it. She wasn't in the condition to do so. So it'll be 6 today, but we do have a quorum. Also, you should have received a short minutes of a special July 11th meeting that took place. Betsy and I were on, but technical difficulties disallowed us from voting. If there are no corrections, I'd take a motion to approve those special minutes from July 11th.
I'll make that motion.
Shannon, Pat. Seconded by Mike. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. First on our agenda, we have transfer of Henry County Sheriff monies from utilities to water softener in the amount of $3,278.80. Do I have a motion to make that transfer?
So moved.
Moved by Susan, seconded by, I didn't hear who seconded. Harold, thanks. If I'm not looking at you, it's hard to tell audio. Okay. All in favor of this transfer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. We have, I want to read this. We have a 35-year Gary Wilson, Sergeant, turned in his resignation on July 14th of this year after 35 years of service to the Henry County Sheriff's Department and its citizens. Council, as you're aware, we're responsible through our budget to approve acquired sick hours, sick pay. This will be in the amount of $17,184, not what's on your itinerary, but what's on the sheet from the Sheriff's Department. Sergeant Wilson requests to purchase the following firearms. That includes his current issued weapon, Glock 47, with attached optic for $1, which is historically approved by. Additionally, an option to purchase department issued DPS MS AR-15. The sentiment of the purchase of the AR is that on December 20th, 2019, he was involved in a police action shooting in Lynn, Indiana, utilizing this weapon, in which he was pinned down for over 3 hours. Those of us who tuned into the commissioners' meeting last night realized that latter motion was tabled at their meeting by the recommendation of the county attorney to look into laws and how that can be dispersed. Page 2. The experience and roles that Sergeant Wilson has contributed into the department and the community has been beneficial. He leaves behind a legacy of loyalty and solid dedication to the role of a law enforcement officer. He will be sorely missed. Sheriff John Sproles goes on to say, I want to personally thank Sergeant Wilson for his loyalty and service. He is a wonderful example and definition of an officer and has done the Henry County Sheriff's Office proud. Before we make a motion, I'd like to commend Sergeant Wilson on his 35 years of service. And please share that with him. Okay, we have to have a motion on the sick pay of $17,184. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Susan, seconded by Mike. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. And do please extend that to Sergeant Wilson. 35 years in your department's quite an accomplishment. Okay, next we have Chief Deputy Josh Smith. He is going to update or talk to us or inquire about Chief Deputy pay as well as sheriff vehicles, and I'm going to kind of lean on Shannon because I know he's been in conversations today and this week with relevant individuals relating to the latter. So, you're not Sergeant Smith, but
I'm going to speak.
Sheriff Sproles,
I'm going to speak for.
you have the floor.
I'll speak for Josh. I'm sorry, the Chief Deputy, Josh Smith. It's in regard to the.
Is your mic on? Is it
I
green?
think it is.
There you go.
Testing. Okay. It will not adjust. Oh, that's a little bit. Okay. Okay. This is in regard to his salary, and this has been brought up in recent council meetings. And I know it's an issue that has been addressed throughout the years. It appears that all of our county elected officials, it appears that the chief deputies all make above 80% and up to 85% of the chief's salary. And I believe that when I say all, that is all except for the sheriff. So I know that it's been pushed around, it's been talked about. I believe everybody is aware that there is a sizable discrepancy there for this position. And so I just I'm wanted to bring it up again because I'm hoping to see some affirmative action taking place and not that it just keeps getting tabled and moved down the road. So that I'm hoping that we could maybe have some action or at least conversation tonight in regard to what percentage are we going to settle on. Am I correct when I say that all other county elected officials, that their chiefs make above 80% and up to 85? Is that a correct statement?
I will say that there are 5 that in the courthouse and the clerk's office over in the Justice Center, 4 of them make 81% and 1 makes 85%, and that kind of goes back historically. And that, I think, Kyle, you mentioned at some previous meeting that's based on something to do with a prosecutor. Or can you use your mic and explain what it does reference to? I think that's what caused the 81 and 85% to be adopted before our time, what the law is.
That was in reference to the sheriff's pay. There's this whole calculation that's done, which comes from the courts, then to what the judges are paid, which translates to what the prosecutors are paid, which then translates to how percentage-wise sheriffs can be paid. And it's population-driven, but I don't think there's anything specific actually to the chief deputy itself.
Chief Deputy of the Sheriff's Department. Yeah, I will say that the Wagner-Irwin Shealy that you alluded to yesterday shows the chief deputy in our 40-mile radius. The full is around 70,000 for the chief deputies of sheriff's departments in East Central Indiana, which would include Hamilton, Johnson, Hancock, Madison, Johnson, Shelby, and everything east of us to the Ohio border. So what this needs to do is not probably be considered here, but our next job classification and/or during the actual budget hearings next Friday. But we do not have the information certain, given what's been said by Kyle and myself, knowing what that Wagner-Irwin Shealy report says, to make a determination tonight. That doesn't mean it can't be made in the next month, but I don't think it can be made without the research we need to do tonight.
I think, if I remember correctly, we had pretty much this exact same conversation in a previous council meeting, maybe a couple months ago, or close to that time frame, that we would table it and do more research into it. So, or we say we haven't done any research on that.
It's because there wasn't a job classification. Our president was ill,
Okay.
and that's the only reason it was canceled today.
Okay. So in the last job classification meeting, if I remember correctly, the last one that we dealt with this, wasn't the motion to send it to the council. Can somebody refresh me on that motion?
It was. I made that motion to move the salary to the council. And then I believe I asked you in council meeting if the Sheriff's Association had any standards or guidelines or anything that we could refer to. I believe my comment was, before we made Chief Deputy Smith the highest paid chief deputy sheriff in Indiana, were there any guidelines on that from the Sheriff's Association?
And yeah, and they don't have guidelines on that. So I want to see some forward motion, and it's interesting to me, and I just want to note that we don't adhere much to the WIS when it comes to our deputies' pay, but when it is in our favor, we like to point at it and say, hey, look at WIS, it only says 70,000. You know, if we could stay with the high average WIS for across the board in the Sheriff's Department, I think we wouldn't kick back.
There's only 3 people, and I don't mean to interrupt you, there's only
you're fine.
3 employees in Henry County making full WIS market, and partially because that's skewed by the donut counties where the cost of living is probably 30 to 40% higher than Henry County. Thus, the pay in those counties are probably 20 to 30% higher than Henry County. We will never have the revenues to pay everyone in this, all 300 and some odd employees, including part-time, what they do in Hamilton, Marion, Hancock, Johnson, and Shelby counties, or even Madison County. Right. So we are, and we have strived to get closer to low market, which is 10% below. But I would hazard to say that our cost of living's less than 10% below those donut counties, what is factored into the WIS. So we have really strived hard to get closer to low market.
So I just want it duly noted that we have an established precedent here with all chief deputies in the county. That is a long-established standing that they get paid between 81 to 85% of their chiefs. And again, we pull out WIS seemingly just when we need it and say, boy, that's just what it feels like. And I
Okay,
get it.
I disagree, because we have really worked hard to
That's
get,
what it feels like
we
to
have
me.
doubled the average wage raise for the Sheriff's Department and last year 911 to what it is on all other departments. So if the people are going to claim unfairness, they would say we've been unduly unfair in giving twice the raise to the Sheriff's Department, the correction officers, and 911 than we have to the rest of the county. Every department has trouble in filling open positions because we are not competitive. And we're not competitive because we don't have the revenues that some of these donut counties have. and we're restricted with revenues. That's what the state legislature says. But we have doubled, and I hope we're able to do that again this year as part of that 3-year plan that I promised your predecessor. We've given greater raises in the sheriff's department in the last 3 years than probably the previous 10 years combined. Is it enough? No. Is it enough for the other departments that did not get the double raise that your deputies did and your jailers did? No, it's not enough countywide.
Well, I do want to say, and I've said it before, that we appreciate the raises. We understood that they've been substantial raises for our officers, for our standards, and we're aware of that, and we do appreciate it. We see the movement towards
I hope
trying to
so.
do better. Yeah, no, we do, and we do appreciate that. So, what I guess if I just could get some direction on what is the next step in regard to this discussion about the deputy chief's salary? So do we table it until?
I would say the next step is when this kind of request, I don't serve on the job classification, but those who do, which I'm looking at Susan and Shannon, usually goes to Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy and actually do a study for that position. And just like EMS has one tonight, we're going to consider, they asked a while back, Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy to do a 5-page study on a position in EMS. That's the next step I would recommend. And those on the job classification, which I don't serve on,
I'm sorry.
please correct me if I'm wrong on that.
We had gone to the job classification, and it
Okay.
was voted out to the council. Is that correct? So do we send it back? Is that what the standard is?
Okay.
So when it came to job classification, the issue that it had kind of brought up to the forefront is that this chief deputy is not making the same 80%, and that has been a topic of conversation. And our attorney said that's not necessarily an issue because it's not necessarily in the personnel handbook. So there's not a legal issue with the fact, is that? Yeah, that's correct. Okay. It's not statute. Right. And so that was something that I had been concerned about in the past and had been something I wanted to follow up on. And so it's not a legal issue. And it doesn't seem to be, whereas a lot of counties pay their chief deputies roughly 80%, they don't seem to pay this position 80% in other counties when we look at the data. So we are actually looking at Wagner and Shealy data, and I don't know if you've done that too, but if you take the sheriff's salary for the other 90-some counties and compare it to the chief deputy, and then come back with an average of what that is, I think we don't see it, is what we were, as we've been talking about it, we don't see that that's how the pay is done in other counties in Indiana, which made us pause. But I think that this should be done in budget session with a new salary ordinance for next year with all of our other raises. Since there's not a legal problem, which was my concern, I think it should be taken up with all the other salaries that we're discussing during budget. That's my thought on it.
And we have presented it in our budget. We presented it in, so I understand that. One other question. Is it a statutory requirement to pay the other deputy chiefs in our county the 80-some% that they're getting? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I think the other offices that you're referring to don't have the statutory for the sheriff to be paid a percentage of the prosecutor, which is set by the state. That's the primary difference.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. If you look at the Wagner Irwin Shealy data, though, like the 80% for Bobby to Debbie, it kind of puts them in a proper range, or the way the rest of our employees are paid. So, whereas if we move Josh up to the 80%, it would make him far above the range we're targeting for our other employees. So, although there's not a statutory requirement for anyone, it lines up somewhat with our pay strategy for all of our employees.
So when you say far above the range, are you talking in dollar amount or percentage amount?
In dollar amount for so the target we got back from WIS was 70 or something. I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me.
The high was around 70 and the low was 10%. Low market is 10%, so it'd be 63, which he's currently in that range. And in fact, last year, the captain was among the highest paid, according to WIS, of any position in the county.
one thing I want to point out that is very important when you're looking at surrounding sheriff's departments. The sheriff's pay, as he said, is based on a percentage based on population. So I think like the Rush County Sheriff, I think the sheriff only makes $60,000 or so. So there can be some really big disparity in, if you're looking at the total what the chief deputy pays. I'm not sure that we're looking at a dollar amount and we're not looking at the percentages, because if the sheriff makes $60,000 down there, if the average is 70, then the chief deputy's making 10,000 more than the sheriff.
Well,
So
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
First thing that comes to mind is you need to put some recruiting signs up down in Rush County, but
they actually pay better.
do they really?
They pay better
For straight
to their
deputies?
deputies than we do. Yeah.
We're working on it.
When Chief Deputy Smith was appointed, his salary was chosen from, how was his salary chosen?
I don't know about the word chosen. I guess it just went to what the former.
It was.
Yeah, is that what?
That-
Because that
That's
was the
where-
2024 approved budget for
Correct.
that position, yes.
That's what I'm trying to determine, because and this is one of the reasons why I think this needs to be paused again tonight.
Okay.
The numbers that I have for the salary for Chief Deputy Smith is roughly 50% of what you are paid.
Okay.
And that aligns with what Chief Deputy Smith told me in person. The documents that I have, though, show a different percentage from 2022, a different dollar amount. That's why I think we need to do some more research and find out what those are and come back and revisit this. And if a mid-year wage update is appropriate, then we need to take a look at that. If we're going to talk about 2024 budget, we definitely need to do that at next week's budget session.
Yeah, no, and I understand. I mean, we can't. I'm not going to be able to work it out tonight. And I just want to make sure we're moving on it. That's my main.
Absolutely.
That's my main thing. Justin, do you have something?
I can clarify the pay. I have done research, and for the surrounding counties, chief deputy, it's roughly 70,000. The counties our size, it's roughly 72. So we're looking at between a $70,000 and $72,000 pay for both surrounding counties and counties our size.
Okay.
And that's about, counties our size, I figured about, I think it was 6 other counties our size that was pretty close to population. I think one was above our population and the others was below.
You probably know what the present salary is for a chief deputy.
Well, right now, it's like between 65 and 68.
So what I have is current salary is $57,862.
No,
Is
it's
that
higher
correct?
than that.
It's 58, no, 56,820, 56,820.
56,820.
That's what
And from the 2022 salary ordinance, or the 2023 employee proposed 2023 salary ordinance, I have the chief deputy in 2022 actual salary of $61,820.
Yeah, so that is the longevity figured in. with
That's his matrix included in, so the
Yeah, hence
57 does
the-
not include your matrix?
That is correct.
Thank you.
And we would love the research that you alluded to. We'd love that being shared with us.
And I guess the other question I would ask is, does the 70,000 number that we get and see, does that include matrix pay, or is that all in salary, or is
I
that?
think we may be we may be kind of rare that we bulk the matrix in. It's a difficult practice because of conversations.
So
like
with
this.
matrix, that's where we're struggling, I think, is trying to understand base pay versus what their pay is. We need to start comparing apples to apples, and we don't have the information to do that tonight.
Right. Yeah, I think we need to in the future deal with base pay and not intermingle the matrix, because that just it makes it
We
difficult.
agree, and I think we agreed on that
Yeah, yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
That's a subject in which we agree.
Okay. So the next item, I want to say on record for Gary Wilson. We appreciated all of those years of service. I remember riding with Gary Wilson when I was 17. So that's been almost 32 years ago. When it just started. So Gary was just a great guy to have around, just encouraging, and we all loved him, and we hate to see that he's gone, but he served well, and I want to say publicly thank you to him. The next item, and I believe our last item, we just want to discuss vehicles. I want to explain a concern that I have. I've explained it somewhat before, but I want you to try to understand my position. We have 28 merit deputies, and we are in, my vehicle has 162,000 miles on it, and we're driving a very, very old fleet. We literally only have maybe 1 or 2 cars, spare vehicles. We call them pool cars. We have seen evenings when you can lose 2 cars by hitting two deer in one shift. We're in my opinion, we're in an emergency we're in a vehicle emergency. If we have 2 cars crash, we have no extras, and that can happen. We drive over 1 million miles a year at sometimes high speeds. And so this is not something that I'm just trying to get new shiny vehicles. This is a huge concern. The safety is a huge concern. I've talked about that, but I just want you all to know that we don't have any extra vehicles, and we're just a night of bad luck away from literally not having a police car to drive.
Understood.
Yeah.
I think Councilman Tome, is that how you prefer your last name?
That's correct.
Okay. I've said Tom for years. My apologies. Other people have
No
said
worries.
it's Tome with a
I've been
long
called
O. He has been working diligently, talking to Enterprise, talking to the commissioners, talking to
I spent quite a bit of time talking with Captain Pierce.
Captain Pierce, and you have information.
Well, I have some, but what I would like to, and I guess we hear you is what some of us did watch the commissioners' discussion last night. I think that's great, and I would love for Captain Pierce to explain to the rest of the council kind of what his thought and plan is. But as a result of all the discussions that I've had, I would recommend maybe we have another work session with the commissioners to talk through what we can and can't do. So we're not going to be able to take any action tonight, of course.
Right.
But I would love for the rest of the council to hear Captain Pierce's plan.
Yes. What do you say you want another session with the commissioners? Are we talking about just the commissioners, or are we talking about an ARPA session?
No, not ARPA session.
Okay.
That might be in addition to, we don't know that yet, but we need a work session because we have to work together on this.
We had a work session on this, and we have a lot more information now, I think, than we had then, and I would like to see if we can have another work session to work through those things. And with the budget hanging in the balance, we're going to need to do that soon. So I know we've got 2 commissioners here. We can work on getting some dates and having some discussion.
I spoke to the commissioners last night, kind of on the ARPA where we were at, because I think there was a little bit of concern and miscommunication about the plans for the vehicles. I gave President Gray a piece of paper. I actually pulled it out yesterday to look at it, and I think some of the members in here were on the ARPA when we had this discussion. The Sheriff's Department came to the fund, or came to the committee to request some funds for vehicles. I know there's some going back and forth on how the wording of the motion was passed, but we were present and the only agency present due to our dire need of vehicles. I put 6 vehicles on there because at first I thought that was where we were headed through ARP or ARPA funds.
Or those are the dots.
Those are the black dots. So we
Okay.
have 6 vehicles. Those are the February mileage. So that mileage you see on those vehicles right now is as of February when we started with gathering data for Enterprise. All of them are in excess, their 18s were older with excess of 100,000 miles. So I thought if we could target those 6 through that other funding source, that would get us into a really good spot, kind of, again, pushing it down a little bit because at some point those 6 vehicles will come due to be replaced, but it would get us back to the point where we wouldn't have the vehicles in excess of 100,000 miles going into next year. So you'll see some of the mileage on the vehicles below those 6 are creeping up on the 100,000. We average about 19,500 miles per vehicle. Every vehicle is a little different. Detective vehicles average considerably less than patrol vehicles, just due to the nature of the work. So then if in the past we've tried to do, or through the budget and through other means, to get 4 vehicles a year. So if we were able to replace those 6 really high mileage vehicles this year with the other funding sources through ARPA, and then target the 4 vehicles for next year, get into a rotation where we're moving these vehicles out before they have 150, or Sheriff, what was your vehicle? 163, when they actually still have some value again, kind of like Mr. Copeland came last night, had a vehicle to trade in on another vehicle and got $20,000. Unfortunately, when we're done with our police cars, I think the estimate on my 17 was $4,000. So the offset wasn't really that much as compared to the price of a new vehicle. So,
We all have that document now.
okay, it's those 6 ones with the black dot out to the left. Those are all currently vehicles in service. And the ones above it that have the black dot to the right, those are pool cars. So if one of those high mileage cars breaks down, that 180,000 plus and that 160,000, 2014, that's the vehicle that's available for the officer when their commission is out of service. So unfortunately, even if we replace some of those 6 high mileage, we're still going to have to hang on to a couple of them for another year or two to push up as pool cars to move some of the extremely high mileage, because I think that one 2018 Charger is pushing 200,000 the last time I heard somebody mark on it.
So what have you and Shannon talked about, other than we need a combined work session
I think
to iron this out? I mean,
think
as soon as possible. to
what we
iron this
talked
out.
about, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, was depending on what happens with replacing some of the other vehicles, for next year's budget, look at potentially purchasing and or leasing to make the dollars go a little further. I just don't know where that's gonna fall, and I think that's why he's requested another session, just to kind of see, obviously with the budget, what we can make happen. Because obviously upfront leasing's cheaper, but in the end, you're still paying a considerable price. You're just doing it over years. Newcastle PD, they have since the Chief Schofield has been, and I'll say this, this year they purchased 10 vehicles, but they pushed it out over 4 or 5 years by financing it, and then they supplement 4, 5, 6 vehicle purchases in between that, because obviously turning over 10 cars every 4 years would not get them in a very good spot.
I would make a comment about their tax rate versus our tax rate, but I will refrain.
Well, unfortunately, tax rates or not, we still have to do the same job as they do.
I know.
And we still try to provide that same good service to the citizens of Henry County.
I agree. We will never be able to have the revenues that they have through their taxing. So we have, probably the year before we came in, this situation was far worse as far as 5 to 10 years without replacements or a regular replacement. We all feel this is important. You have to realize we have X amount of money, and we will prioritize this because the safety and your jobs are a priority. Just like 911, making it survive at our 6 o'clock meeting has to do with public safety, and it's a priority. EMS is a priority, fire is a report. All these safety things are a priority. So I think the idea of a combined work session is excellent, so that we can do the best we can with the monies we have available.
And obviously, I'm not here to request anything. I don't think Sheriff is. We just want to be on the same page, because I know there's some concerns. The commissioners brought up yesterday that some things have been said or some things were out there. And I would rather just come in here in front of you, men and women that sit up here, and answer those questions honestly and to the best of my ability, so that way it's all out and we can all have the same information when we come to the point that decisions need to be made.
I agree, and I listened to the meeting last night, and I thought that discussion was very positive and very informative, because it answered some of the questions I had. about what the desire was, and some of the confusion questions that the commissioners had were some that I had. So if you haven't, council members, listened, because it's obviously streamed online, I would suggest that you listen to that, because I learned some things about what you were proposing that I had questions about.
So I haven't had the opportunity to listen to that meeting yet, but I do want to make a couple of comments that are of great concern to me. The ARPA funds, I don't know how all of that works, but I know that we was asking about that from back in probably when we had our first meeting at the Sheriff's Department. I think it was March. And so I asked about whether we can buy emergency vehicles out of the ARPA funds, and I was told you have to come to the ARPA committee and ask. And I asked that question several times, and a commissioner said you have to come and ask for it. So we had obviously put that in our calendar to come and ask for these for money to get vehicles. We had talked about what kind of a fix do we have to survive if we've been buying 4 cars a year, we're just going backwards. 4 7s or 28, if my math is right now. That says that we have to hang on to cars for 7 years. We put 35,000 miles a year on, so we've got to get out of the 4 car per year, or we're going in the hole. So
We agree.
yes, okay. So I had put the ARPA meeting in my calendar wrong, and I showed up the day before, and I went in the commissioner's office. There were 2 commissioners there, and I said that I thought the ARPA meeting was today. They said, no, it is tomorrow. And I said, do I need to get on any special list to make a presentation, because I'm obviously going to be asking for vehicles.
Don't throw anyone under the bus. I was at that meeting.
I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I want to say that what I have heard, I didn't get to watch the meeting last night, but now there's controversy about, well, there's some of that money is going to be used for other vehicles. I specifically asked for the Henry County Sheriff's Office for $330,000 to get 6 vehicles. And here's the bottom line, and I understand, don't throw anybody under the bus, but you were there, so I won't repeat, but you knew what took place.
I do.
And it was ugly. And now we're hearing that we're going to, the money that I had requested for 6 vehicles may get dispersed to other county emergency vehicles. What I was told is you have to come ask for it. We came and asked. I didn't see anybody else there asking for other money, so I am concerned that now we're going to dilute that down. And
I don't think so. I think my conversations with the commissioners had to do with, let's settle on this lease and what's in the regular budget. Work with Shannon, who's had experience with leasing fleets, which none of us have had. I think those conversations have taken place with Captain Pierce and Steve Dellinger. I think this work session, some of your concerns that you're bringing up and questions you have, which I kind of had after the last ARPA meeting too, I think we want to get the cart before the horse and see what can be done in that work session. And then if there's needs in the ARPA, could go back to ARPA, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were lingering questions on this whole lease thing versus purchase. And I think that's why there was pause at ARPA, but those monies were set aside, $400,000, I believe. I heard 500 and 400, but I think what was passed was 400. And I think they wanted to settle on the whole lease versus purchase and how many. And I think that can be done at the combined session, and then we can get the ball rolling sooner than later.
Our question to ARPA had nothing to do with leasing. It was, can we purchase 6 vehicles? And that's
I know,
what
but
the quick fix was.
Total of all requests and the total of 4 versus 6 versus 8 total, and 2023 versus 2024. That kind of goes into the budget hearings. It kind of goes into ARPA. It kind of goes into combined work session. I think we're really close to hammering this out. And I appreciate your patience. It's the speed of government, which is snails pass us up some months. But if you be patient for another month, I think we're going to make progress. Finally, make progress.
I just want to make sure we're making progress. That's all.
Well, I can see from your vantage point, you see that it hasn't been. but I think probably with Shannon's and Matt's work, I think we're going to make progress over the next month. Plus, we're going to know more next Friday when we meet with you on the 2024 budget, and it all goes together.
Okay, I'm good with it. I know Shannon's been working hard, as I know you all have, but I know specifically on the vehicles, he's put a lot of time in, and Captain Matt has, and I'm,
Yeah, and I know these vehicles have been an issue for 10 years. We've not kept up with the mileage and the replacement. We've chipped away, but we probably haven't chipped away because of the financial restrictions we have. We are making progress on salaries, we're making progress on vehicles, and I know it seems like not enough, and you're probably right.
we're making progress. That's good.
Thank you for the time. I know you guys are probably, I know with budgets and everything, you guys are busy, so I'll thank you for that. And then I will say, potentially, not with forcing it through, but pushing it through quicker, because vehicles are tough to come by. The state police just picked up the last 70 that Fletcher had in one fell swoop.
We've heard that from you, we've heard that from Joe Copeland,
Yeah,
we've heard that on supplies, we've heard that on vehicles. They're
tough.
backlogged 6 months. So that's why we probably need to do something now so that vehicles might be in the fleet by February or the spring.
Yeah. Thank you, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, I think I covered that.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you. Okay. Council, any questions or comments on that whole matter? Kyle?
My only comment is that it is with the budget hearing from yesterday? We were together, and then next Friday. It is just such a puzzle when the work you guys are doing to put together your budget in a way that makes more sense, and the way the money is all funneled, to next week when we have hopefully more of that information, looking at different funds from different places, because when we talk about the ARPA money, that's a different pool that's outside of the budget. So seeing where the budget lies with the requests that are there, and how do we channel all of those funds appropriately, I think a lot will be done and accomplished by the time we finish up next Friday. It's been mentioned a lot, and I just want to say, like, my second year going through this time of year, it's extremely important. It's not just a kick the can down the road or a cliche statement. It's just a puzzle.
I won't take long. I would say the reason we came to ARPA was we were trying to look at a way to get that vehicle situation back in line without going to the general fund, because it's not there. So we weren't trying to put all the strain on the general fund and try to find a way to get us back on the right road. And that's the reason why we came to ARPA. So
Understood and appreciated. And hopefully, I think there's 5 pieces of this puzzle, and usually we have 2 that we're juggling at the same time. There's about 5 to this one, in concert with the budget for 2024. And we did get some information from Baker Tilly that will help us even better during budget time today. So council, if you've not read that from Debbie, please do that prior to tomorrow's budget hearing. Next, and I'm going to request Attorney Harvey to help me out. Within the past month, I listened to another commissioner meeting. I don't know if it was your last one or the one before that, but within the past month, there was the guest house requested opioid funds for $100,000 for roof at the guest house, the former 7th grade building. And that was approved. My understanding of the opioid, you correct me where I'm off, because this is our first one we're even considering from opioid monies, that similar to the commissioners come up with a plan, and then we approve the finances, the appropriation. Okay, so that was done. Now, I talked to Joel before this meeting, and there hadn't been any ordinance or resolution or anything in writing for us to vote on. So I'm going to turn it over to you if you use your mic and tell us advise us as to how we need to act today in light of not having written information in front of us.
Sure. Similar to the ARPA funds, I had advised that the commissioners should come up with a plan for how to spend, and then you appropriate that. When we've done ARPA funds in the past, the commissioners will adopt an amending resolution that amends the plan, and then you approve the expenditure in a separate document. That's not necessarily required, but I've done it in order to keep records straight. So I think you're free to go ahead and vote to appropriate the funds, and I believe it was $100,000, is that correct? That the commissioners had done from the restricted use opioid funds. And then I can prepare subsequent for your signature, then something memorializing your approval.
So this would be a motion and approval based on moral,
Based on the commissioners or based on the commissioners voting to appropriate or voting to use opioid funds for.
which would memorialize their decision.
Correct.
last month.
Yep.
Council, you get that?
So the commissioners have already approved this, is what you're telling me?
Yes, the commissioners approved it. I've
We
advised.
just
that the-
don't have a formal resolution to act on.
Correct, yeah. Typically, with
I'll make the motion to proceed.
With approving their $100,000 approval to the guest house roof project through using opioid restricted monies. I have a motion by Shannon,
Second.
second by Kyle. Any other discussion after Attorney Harvey has given us the background? If not, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Passes 6-0. Thank you, sir. Good luck with that project. We commend what you do with the guest house and the gentleman. And we appreciate muchly the work that you do at the guest house. Yes, and I know, I've had meetings over there, Mr. Pasman and others, and Passau, pardon me. So, thank you for the work you do. It's sorely needed and greatly appreciated in our county and this city. Thank you so much. Let's see. Mandy. Da, 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 da. Speaking of Wagner Irwin Shealy, this was requested, and I think the Job Classification Committee, maybe Shannon, asked the powers to be here in the courthouse if this needed to be considered sort of an emergent, anyway, one that we needed
It was emergent last month. It's
that we
even
needed
more
to
so
address
this month.
tonight, and they assured us it was.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
You're-
with, last month, you guys requested a job classification and an actual job description. We did send that to Wagner, Irwin, and Shield. We were pretty close on our estimate of what it should be paid.
right,
Pretty much, their difference is about $85 a pay more. I'm going to ask to go ahead and pay her what they recommend, cheap, or we can stay to the other. But I mean, honestly, if that's what they recommend, then it's based off her job description. So if that's what that job deserves, then we can afford it. It's basically just right, $2,200, I think, a year difference between what I had said I thought it should be to what they came back with.
okay. I'm reading that, and they suggest a poll one at a pay rate of $16.52 rounded
No,
per
you
hour.
may have the EMT one, which wasn't supposed to go to
That's not the
you.
one we're referencing?
That's not the one you're
Oh,
referencing.
let me get on the right one then.
Yep, she's, they got a 2023 2 hourly pay of $17.03.
Okay, a comment two
Yeah.
at 1703. And did you calculate on the hourly what that would be
Yep.
annually?
Yep, so it's a difference of, I think well, I didn't grab my phone. I believe it's like $2,200 more a year. Is that right? Can someone?
Oh, comment two is at the bottom of our salary.
Yeah, I don't know how I just know what the recommendation is.
Yeah, 31 would be correct. Yes, because it was 29 when we came on, and we said we don't want anyone under 30,000, and we've been working to up that. So 31 is what it is, and hopefully we'll have monies to have a raise in this 2024.
Right, so why did I need to do this then? Why didn't I just get a job description? Why did I ask them what to pay her?
Somebody on job
I'm going to say
description.
the same thing that everyone else says. Why do we get these if we don't use them?
I
That's
think-
what I just asked Debbie, is this what we currently pay our COMAT twos?
Yeah.
She's saying yes. So that's a great and easy decision then,
Yeah.
because we don't have a discrepancy.
Sometimes the wages that come back from Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy are a range, low to high, and sometimes that low is higher than anybody we've got on any of those classifications are being paid. So this one seems pretty straightforward. This is what they suggest. That's what we're currently paying. I think it's an easy one.
Okay, do we have a motion? If there are no more further questions for Mandy, do we have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Moved by Susan,
I'll second.
seconded by our other job classification committee member to approve this position, this comment 2 for $31,000. Any questions, comments among the group? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Now, is there another one?
No, that was
That's not the emergency one.
preemptive to budget.
Okay, that's not the emergency one. Okay, thank you, and thank you for the work you do. Appreciate it. Okay, I have as happened last year, the date that we've set for our September council meeting corresponds to the annual Association of Indiana Counties Conference in Southern Indiana. I think that date is September 28th. We need to move it. I have talked to Debbie today. I suggested that still the last week, either Monday or Friday. She's an officer in AIC district, and she suggested she could do it Friday, just one day later in September, on Friday the 29th, if you'd look at your calendars and see if that would work with you. I think the commissioners may have canceled theirs. What? I assume still at 4 o'clock, but we could set, since we're moving, we could set it to 4:30 and you don't have to be in trouble with your employer.
I'd recommend earlier. We're talking a Friday.
Yeah, I'd like to get it done.
4, okay, I hear 4.
I hear 3.
I hear 3, but that's going to mess Mike up. He won't be able to come. Really? Okay, he's our outlier. Okay, I have a motion. 29th, Friday the 29th at 3. 3 o'clock. Motion?
So moved.
Kyle, second. Second by Harold. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? I didn't think so. Passes 6-0. Anything else from the public? We will, in 38 minutes, have a public hearing on a proposed PSAP, 0.1% for 911. Everyone's welcome for that at 6 o'clock. Anything else from the council? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And Mike heralded as the second. Adjourned. See you at 6. Everyone who was present, appreciate it.